Good morning. This You're here today with the Feminist Hour, La Hora Feminista with DJ Morena Libre.
And DJ JC, good morning, everybody. Good Friday morning to everybody. October 7th. Really nice as we're walking over here to the studio today.
I was wearing a
81
sweater.
degrees and cloudy, and I believe it's going to stay like this for the remainder of the day at least. So something to look forward to, something different as we're part of the fall semester and the fall season. If you've noticed, our show did move. We were normally at 9 a.m., but we have moved to 11 a.m. So if you are enjoying your late breakfast or very early lunch, thank you for joining us. We're going to go ahead and get started with some music to get you going and a very interesting conversation that we're going to be having after the break. So thank you so much for being here.
So here we go with Hotel California by the Eagles. Buenos días. So we are here at the Feminist Hour, La Hora Feminista. I am DJ Morena Libre.
This is DJ JC.
And good morning. It's Friday. It's Friday.
Yes, yeah. Friday, October 7th. First week of October 2022, almost done.
I love Fridays. I'm loving Fridays even more doing this.
I know, right? It's
It gives me something to look forward to at the end of the week, something fun. I'm learning. I'm learning from students. This is great.
I think this is one of the ways that I approach it is, my background is not in feminist studies or gender studies. So I learn, every time we have a conversation, whether you and I are meeting and prepping for this
We do meet and
show.
prep, by the way.
Yes, there is some preparation.
There is
that
some
goes
preparation.
It's not just get on the microphone. There is some prep that we do before showtime.
We schedule ourselves within other meetings.
Yes, within other meetings about a meeting about a meeting. So yes, it happens.
Yes, it does. It does. But no, we this segment we just want to talk about. First of all, our show is changing the time, and you mentioned that.
Yes, 11 o'clock.
So it's going to be 11 o'clock now, and it works great. I think we're getting into the lunch hour, and us here in the studio, including our station manager, is much more relaxed, and he's teaching us. He's becoming our teacher, so things are good. Friday's turning out to be really well at this hour.
And I think this is a good time for this show because, like you said, the end of the week, going into the weekend, great conversation, great music, great listeners. So, yes, I'm really excited about this new time, this new venue. And so if you are interested in the show, continue to support us. And if you know somebody that's interested in this topic or just wants to hear great music or great conversation, please let them know about our show and our new show hour at 11 o'clock every Friday morning.
And we're gonna be eventually setting up our email, setting up social media, so that you can also send us requests or questions or comments, feedback. We take it all.
And again, it's a learning opportunity for us.
It is, because neither one of us this is not our day job. No. Let me
It isn't.
It is part now of our day job, but it is not this
what
is,
we do.
No. This is a new venture for
us.
This is a new project, and we're very excited about it. So this is our third show now.
Yes.
Yeah. And we want to just talk briefly, kind of we want to call this segment the brain dump segment, right? And I use that in my classes as a way for students to do some free writing, right? Just kind of think about the end, once their assignments are due, once they've read, once they've had time to annotate and just give their feedback on, or just what they're thinking about the readings. I have them do a free write, and I call it a brain dump. Because, in free writing, you just go and write. You don't think about punctuation. You don't think about spelling. You just
express,
and that's it. So I think this segment would be really great to kind of take that opportunity as DJs and just kind of do that kind of weekly brain dump of what's going on in the world.
And there is a lot. You have your very serious issues. Voting, that's coming up. The elections are coming up.
It is.
So make sure that you've registered to vote.
We need to register to vote. That is a feminist thing to do. It is our civic right. Many people have struggled and given us and have died for the right to vote. Yes. So it is very important that we honor that, by registering to vote, but not only just registering, right? Actually going to the ballot box and
It's your voice.
and use it. Use your voice. Yeah, yeah. So when do you have the dates? Did we not look up the dates? Okay, well, oh my gosh, we're so
Again, we
bad.
do prep.
We do prep. We just forgot that little detail, but it's coming up. It's like maybe a few days away.
I believe
to
you
be
mentioned
to
4
the
or 5
deadline.
days. Yes, 4 or 5
Yes.
days for that.
I'll put it in my social media when you have to register to vote. It's because I'm already registered, so I it's not something that I go and search for. But yes, please go register to vote and enact your right, your voice, please. What else? What's going? Hurricane Ian was whoa, like wow.
Still feeling the effects of that.
Wow, it was just. When is the date to vote? Yeah, but Ian was really devastating.
Yeah, Tuesday, October 11th
Thank
is
you.
the last day to register to vote.
Thank you,
and
Trey.
this is from Trey, our assistant. So he found that information post haste. And
Yes.
so he's informing us. So please make sure that you not only register to vote, but that you do go out there, like was mentioned. So important, your voice, your representation of who it is that you want. And we've talked about this, and we were going to talk about it last week. The decision to vote based on what matters to you, what matters to your community, what matters to your values. So
Yeah, but beyond the community, also it's learning or finding the information that you need so you can make a well-informed decision.
Yes.
On who you're going to vote, right? Look at the platform, look at their websites, and it's what you want to really look for when you're going to, figure out who you're going to vote for. You want to look at their platform, right? What are they suggesting? What changes do they want to bring about? But that affect your community, right? That's really important. Or at least your position in life. But make sure that you kind of, sometimes we look at these websites or we hear them talk and
with commercials as well.
Commercials, right? And, they don't give us detail. They don't cite properly.
As a librarian, that really is upsetting.
Yes, it is. They have to be citing. And they don't. So you kind of have to dig in. You have to dig a little bit more for that information.
And one of the things that I can say is, to vote based on, again, that research that you've conducted and, what you've investigated. And I say that because a lot of us go with, the trends and who's the most popular, who is everybody voting for. But does that person really speak to you and who you are? Your vote is your vote and that's your voice. So, become familiar with the candidates, become, just...
And ask
educated.
questions. Yeah, ask questions. It's really important. There should be a way for us to communicate more with the politicians that are, or people who are running for these political positions. And it's when they call you at your house and they're, sometimes they do these phone, right, the phone banks, and they call. Be prepared to ask questions at that time because you want well-informed. You want to be as well-informed as you can be to cast that vote, right?
Yeah.
It's just about getting the proper answers to your questions.
And don't just say, I'm going to vote the way my friends are voting. Everybody's voting for this candidate. Well, I'm going to go that route. No, I mean, like we said, become educated.
Yeah. Yeah. And
educate yourself on that.
Yeah, and that's just a rule of thumb, right? Like, be just well informed about that. Because the vote is really serious.
It is.
It is really serious.
And in not so serious news, I guess shifting a little bit,
Yes,
go and talk with the brain. There is a new adult Happy Meal from McDonald's that
What?
came out. Yes, an adult Happy Meal that you can actually get now. Yes.
What?
And from what I was reading right before coming over here, supposedly some McDonald's are discouraging patrons from ordering the adult Happy Meal because it is overwhelming them. It is too much.
Wait, whoa, the demand.
The demand.
People are going in and
adult
out.
Happy
Really?
Meals, yes.
Really? I don't,
Yes.
McDonald's.
We had a whole conversation scheduled for that later on on a future show.
Yes. It's for another show. But wow, that's news to me.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Didn't they already have like a junior one?
Yes,
Yeah, like
they
there was a Happy Meal, but then there was a big kid one.
Yeah, big yes.
And
but
now,
there's an adult.
now it's the adult.
Yes.
Oh wow.
And it's
Okay,
really
well that's
popular.
news to me. So are we going for another break? Do you want to hear another break? Okay, so Pat Benatar, hit me with your best shot. There he goes. Hello, we're back. We have an interesting conversation.
Yes.
That we've been prepping for. We are going to be talking about intersectionality, right? How did we come up with? Why did we decide to? I wrote it on our work form.
Yes.
But I forgot why.
Why it came up.
Why it came up. I mean, intersectionality is a really important conversation within feminist studies, within feminist activism. So I can see why it came up, even if I don't remember how, but you're our memory keeper here, Joel. So, we need to remember these things.
I know we were, talking all sorts of things first couple of episodes about music.
I think it's one of those words I jotted down. Okay, we need to talk about intersectionality, maybe.
And so as we were prepping for the show, I saw in that document that we share, intersectionality, and I really didn't know anything about it. So I started, as a librarian and as a researcher, starting to do some investigation into this, and went down a rabbit hole. And I'll mention that if you've been following the show from the beginning, I do use the phrase rabbit hole a lot.
We should have just named the show the rabbit hole.
Down the rabbit hole.
The feminist rabbit hole.
Yes. And so if you are enjoying your coffee, tea, soda this early in the morning, you could think of it as a drinking game every time I use the phrase down a rabbit hole. But we're not promoting alcohol. We are just you're gonna hear that because I tend to use that phrase a lot, and it's one thing that it happens, whether you're on TikTok, whether you're on social media, whether you are just reading something off of the internet. Some of you right now may have heard about the adult Big Mac and may have gone down the rabbit hole and wanted to look more information about that.
Or
so
you just
just promoted McDonald's without actually knowing it. But so this came up and I didn't know anything about it. And so as I mentioned earlier, to me, this show is a learning experience, a learning opportunity. And so I did some research on it, and it's very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, intersectionality. Oh, so one thing I want to clear up about, and not clear up. I'm also again in this journey, but I'm in circles, feminist circles, academic feminist circles, in which intersectionality is discussed quite a bit. So I've learned a lot of intersectionality through dialogue, through presentations, through conferences, and it's not an easy like I think Kimberly Crenshaw, by the way, is the one that coined the term. She is a legal scholar. I believe she teaches. She has appointments in Columbia University and at UCLA, or I believe so, and she wrote a piece in 1989. It was published in 1989.
89.
Yeah, and she basically was bringing in the Black feminist thought into legal scholarship and legal discourse, and really so it's really grounded. Intersectionality is grounded in Black feminist thought, in Black feminism, and Black social movement. So many scholars have come together and discussed intersectionality because it's a really important. The way Kimberly Crenshaw describes it is that she talks about intersectionality as a metaphor, right? She's using it as a metaphor so that we can understand the unique experiences of Black women particularly, but in general women of color within the legal system, the justice system. In that, women within legal studies and class, right? Women is a particular type of class. Race is a particular type of class within the legal system. What was happening was that they don't intersect within legal discourse to give proper justice to Black women, right? So we owe all of this really to Black feminists, and so it's unique. These uniques, and within intersectionality, there's just so much to discuss. But within it is that we need to understand that it's some scholars call them social identities in terms of how they intersect. Like, for example, a Black woman, right, of working class or poor class, or how does that unique experience intersect to create, right, and enhance or even create particular oppressions. Now, if you look at the longer history of intersectionality and the way Black feminist thought has grown and formed throughout these decades, is that it has like the Combahee River Collective calls it interlocking oppressions. So now that's a different term.
I was going to ask, is it the
than
same
social
thing?
Identities,
Okay.
right? The thing is that we have to understand that social identities are formed from our positionalities in the world, right? And if you start bringing in social structures, institutions that were created really from labor exploitation, from misogyny, they're oppressive institutions, right, that interact and that we navigate through. And it's really important to understand that social identities are foundational to some of the oppressions that we experience as women and women of color.
And
then it goes back all the way to the to colonization and empire imperialism. I mean, it's got a long history. It's a concept. It's an analysis of our lived experiences, but it's well rooted in denouncing and understanding the effects of systems of oppressions in women's lives.
does it affect?
And not just women of color, and women.
That was my question.
And gendered women. Like, so a lot of the women that do speak against or do speak to intersectionality are also queer women or lesbians, depending on what term they use to identify the LGBTQ community. So I mean, they're really there because they're not only talking as let's say as a Black woman, but also as a queer Black woman, right? So that's another social identity, or imposition as well, depending on how you want to see it. It also brings in another unique experience, right? So it's just accounting for experiences. So, but yeah, intersectionality is a very interesting and often misunderstood concept.
Yes, I had to do several searches before I could identify exactly what it was. And so we'll continue this conversation because it's very interesting throughout the show. So please stay tuned.
Well, and because of this, because Beyonce, I'm gonna bring in Beyonce and we're gonna play Formation. I think it's an important song, especially for the topic. So here we go. We are back, the studio here in Bronzeville, UTRGV, Vaquero Radio.
This Valley's only student station
Yeah.
is what we support, we promote, and we hope that you are listening to our show as well as others and supporting those shows. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here.
Okay, so back to our conversation. So I want to, intersectionality is really complex, and we're not going to cover it in 2 minutes. Right. So, but if you want to come and get with me, if you want to talk, we can, if not, we should look into, maybe having in the library like an intersectionality reading list, right, where students can go, resources. Maybe that's something that we could develop. Because there's fascinating work out there on intersectionality, and it's been on the works, but also giving you those, the before intersectionality, the term itself was coined, where there were so many other writers, Black feminist writers. We're talking about, for example, interlocking oppressions, just different terms, different concepts that then Kimberly Crenshaw brought into legal studies. And then, she used that wonderful metaphor that we now use, which is intersectionality. But it is rooted, again, in Black feminist thought. And we also need to make sure that as a practice of learning, of walking this path of education, institutional education, is that we learn, how to cite, like the roots, right, of these concepts, especially because there is politics within citation, there is power within citations, and many women of color do not get cited as frequently as, let's say, a male scholar or white male scholar. So that is, and again, we go back to intersectionality, right? If we to try to help us understand the reasons why that phenomenon happens. So there is political work that we still need to do within the academy in terms of even just citations, right? Especially work that gets published. We need to make sure that we cite those that we need to give credit where credit is due. So yeah, intersectionality is well rooted in Black feminist thought, and Kimberly Crenshaw coined the word in the late 1980s.
But as you mentioned, Sylvia, it goes beyond just that. It's experiences. When I was kind of delving down the rabbit hole, there you go, take a sip.
I try it and I reach out for my coffee.
Some of the things, and I actually started searching. I wanted to break it down into terms that, again, not having a background in this, looking at the term for the first time, I found an illustrated version of this, and sort of a Venn diagram that kind of puts all these different things together. And some of the things that were mentioned, and I think you talked about them, were like nationality, sexuality, racial identity, gender, disability, and I guess where they interconnect. I mean, if you're looking at it in terms of a Venn diagram, is the middle of that.
Yeah, and we need to, exactly. So the person, right, or the community is at the center of that.
Yes.
So, but it's really one thing that is very interesting about a mode of an analysis that includes more than one axis of analysis, meaning like, let's look at males, right, in a particular community so that we can understand, particular phenomenon. Well, what if you intersected with, Black males or African American males of a particular class, like let's say, maybe they work or they're poor, or of an elite class, right? Like then you start intersecting another axis, right? And then another, like you can add, like maybe looking at men with disabilities, right? Yes. That's intersectionality, right? Of course, the focus is to try and understand the groups or the communities that are most affected by systems of oppression, right? So that's something we need to keep in mind, because we need to understand that it's grounded in those experiences. Because you do have certain groups, like let's say white feminists, right, that may be trying to use intersectionality, which is I'm not saying that they can't. I'm just saying that as soon as you bring in whiteness into this conversation, there's already a level of privilege that comes in.
Okay.
Right. And which it doesn't erase the intersections, but it does provide a foundation of privilege that whiteness gives, right? And it provides to a person or a community. So those are the complexities of intersectionality, or of these forms of analysis, that really need to be learned and discussed, mainly, right? Discussed, because that's how you then learn to respect difference, right?
Yeah,
we're all different and we're all unique. And if we try and use like these boxes of categories to categorize people, to classify people, we run into dangers of erasing or not accounting for, especially in legal, you know what I mean? Like when it's like in legal discourse and legal practice, it is so important. That's why it was really really important for Kimberly's Crenshaw's contribution to this conversation is really important, because she brought it into legal studies. She actually was part of the group of the legal scholars who helped Anita Hill. Oh. Yeah. No, she's a badass. Yeah, no. She's a powerhouse. Mm-hmm. So we need to always keep that in mind when we talk about or try and use or discuss or learn about intersectionality, that it's well-rooted.
As I was going through the research, some of the questions that kept coming up in some of the material that I was reviewing and looking. Some of the questions: what does it have to do with women's rights? What does it have to do, excuse me, with violence against women and girls? And
So one of the projects that she works on is how do Black women, how have Black women been erased or made invisible in conversations of police brutality and Black men, right? And especially in policed communities, right? Black and brown men. Normally the discourse, and there's a wonderful video, an interview of her talking about how they were protesting George Floyd. They were out there in protest and support of, trying to bring justice to his death. They came out, her and her students, and the nonprofit that she now has they came out with posters with banners, banners with the name of women, right, who had been killed by police, Black women who had been killed, but have never ever been paid attention to by the media. Or by other groups, especially the justice group, with justice lawyers or legal cases, right, to bring attention to some like Sandra Bland, right. There's so many names. So there's a hashtag that she started, Say Her Name, and if you type that in, it'll bring you like all these resources of information. Talking about how just bringing light to that Black women are also
victims
of police brutality. Yeah. So no. It's really interesting conversations within intersectionality. But again, it's a lot. We won't be able to. We just touched.
Not even in this hour-long show we'll be able to cover everything about it.
No, but it is a lot. That's one of those that it's part of our learning and trying. There's a student group. Their acronym is IFSO, and they're out of the Gender and Women's Studies program. And they're an intersectionality feminist student organization. And I'm trying to get the student leaders to come and talk to us just to see what they're working on, why they chose the name, right? That's really interesting to me. So just kind of bring in that history here locally.
Great.
Yeah. So now for our next song, who are we going to bring in?
One of my favorite Simon and Garfunkel songs, Sound of Silence.
I came to this song through the Bangles, okay? So, and then I found out it was Simon and Garfunkel. So here we go. I'm going to play it. Okay, so I have to correct myself. I learned about Simon and Garfunkel thanks to the Bangles, but it wasn't this song. It was a different song. Okay, so my music history is a little bit off. But for this segment, we briefly introduced our audience to, or maybe augmented it because maybe some of you already know about intersectionality. But I think at this point, right, I'm still learning about it, and I'm very interested in trying to even practice that, but also practice it in my research, and how to bring in these different, and I've done it through like Maria Lugones, decolonial feminisms, and through native feminist work as well, in Chicanas. But I for the sake of us in this, we've been calling ourselves, es una jornada de educación, right? We're learning how to walk this path of teaching ourselves feminisms. So for DJ JC, I want to pose the question, like, what does this mean? Because you've been reading up on it. You've been learning. You've been trying to dig through it and the rabbit hole. Another drink, right?
Drink right there.
So I just want to know what you're thinking.
When I first saw it on our group doc that we share, I really didn't know anything about it, and I still don't know. I mean, everything about it.
No,
there's so many layers to it, but. To me, based on the research that I found, and a couple of things that kind of stood out was this statement that it reads, intersectionality is the acknowledgement that everyone has their own unique experiences of discrimination and oppression, and we must consider everything and anything that can marginalize people: gender, race, class, sexual orientation, physical ability, etc. And so in our conversations, in prepping for this and just, talking about this, to me it was more, feminist women, but the term, all of us have our own experiences being discriminated against. Does it also mean like us as males, us as you mentioned earlier,
as a brown man in Brownsville, right?
In Brownsville, yeah. What does that mean to me?
And also bringing in your age, right?
Yes.
You're in your, I don't want to give out your age, but you're in your 40s, right?
Yes.
And what does that mean? And not so much like intersectionality, right?
Yes.
But in terms
everything
of
that comes along with it.
Understanding the multiple oppressions of identities, right? That identities and positions, right, in our lives. What does that mean for you as a brown man living here, family man, right?
Okay,
all that.
Okay, well, let me ask you this, Sylvia.
No. Don't turn it around on me.
Sorry. No. Let me ask. No, because I can recall an experience that I had when I was younger, where I had an uncle who lived in Dallas, and we went to visit him, and this was mid 80s, early 80s, and I remember we were waiting for him to get out of work, and there's no cell phones at this time, and there was a Kmart, I remember, right around the corner from where he lived. And at that Kmart, if you can recall, first of all, what a Kmart is, let alone that a Kmart had a restaurant. I don't know if you remember the restaurants in Kmart. Yeah. And I remember us waiting at the cafe/restaurant there, and getting the look, and flat out somebody refusing to assist us and to serve us. Yeah. And so I started thinking, is that similar to this, or is it something totally different? I mean, based on all of us having these experiences, maybe being discriminated against, being, feeling prejudiced, but does this fall under me as a male? As we started investigating and talking and discussing this, and talking about women and the oppression that they've gone through, and black women and so forth. But does this also hold true for me as a male, experiencing that, going through that, feeling that terrible, feeling of, wow, somebody is really discriminating against us.
So now imagine that how you felt, right? And seeing it from a male perspective, because maleness is also a social identity, right? It's also a category, just as woman and male, right? Or a man, right? Looking at it from that perspective, then just think also about, wow, how would others have experienced that?
Yes.
Right? So then you start looking at the bigger issues, right? Okay, I experienced it or my uncle experienced it as a brown male, right? In probably a predominantly white community,
yes,
right? How would then that be, let's say, for a black woman or a black male, right? Then you start thinking about this different social identities. What if somebody with a disability, right, who maybe intersects with brownness or blackness, but also as a male or as a female or as a woman, right? Like then that's what intersectionality helps us then understand, right? Like so then let's these compounding forms of identity and that come with certain oppressions.
So you mentioned layers, and so if you do have an individual of black female with a disability, whose sexual identity is are those the different layers that we're talking about?
Yes, those are different intersections. Yes.
Okay.
That's exactly it. And it's, again, intersectionality is an analytical perspective, right? We're trying to analyze the situation. We're trying to analyze and make room for differences, right? And respect differences and uniqueness in different experiences, because we're all going to experience life differently. All of us have, yes, we might be grouped as Mexicanos or Chicanos, right? But even within that category, that is oftentimes imposed on us, we have different experiences, right? That are very unique to, like, let's say, where our parents grew up, where do they have citizenship, right? Do they what kind of education did they receive? What access to education did they receive? The language, right? Any types of disabilities, all that. We have to take all of that into account to understand somebody's positionality, right? Yeah.
I can.
But we also have to understand that many of these social identities are part of oppressions. That I want to come back to always to that, right? Because
You're oppressing somebody.
They're oppressive systems, right? They're systems of oppression that have been imposed over time that can be traced back to imperialist, Eurocentric or European expansion in the 1500s, right? Now that we're celebrating a colonizer's day, right, on Monday.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, these systems go way back. They just didn't start in the 1960s, or prior. They have a long, like they say in history, a longue durée, right? They've been around for a very long time, but they've changed over time, and they change over, and it's particular to place. Yeah. So does that help? I know I went a long way to kind of.
It does help.
So when a male picks this up or a man picks this up, right? It just comes with more contention because that's your responsibility to then understand, well, how does this affect women?
Exactly, and that is what I was interested in. That's why I wanted this conversation, to continue to have this radio show, at least to deal and delve into this a little more, because you're right. I cannot relate to a lot of the experiences of that. And I mean, I'm going back to a situation that happened mid 80s, and it's still, I can still remember it, but I mean, does it?
And within within that category of women, I'm including also trans women. Okay, I just want to be clear about that as well. Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, when a male picks this up, particularly, and I'm speaking to black and brown males, right? It's like we need to find ways for you all to expand, right? You all need to find ways to expand your perspective
and understanding, because I had never, and I know I mentioned this throughout the show, I had never even seen this term before. And according to the research that I found, in 2015 it was included and added into the Oxford English Dictionary.
I didn't come to intersectionality or this type of analysis until my master's thesis, and it was my mentors who introduced me to this bridge called My Back by Cherry Moraga and Gloria Ansaldúa, that I was like, wow, like why didn't I learn this? And now I sound like my students. Why didn't I learn this when I was in high school?
My freshman year in college.
So yeah, it's just now I get upset too, because I'm like, I should have known this a long time ago, right? Or at least try to understand my world and make meaning of my world from that perspective, right? Not be afraid to say, hey, I come from a working class family.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but only that, how has my family been affected by that class, right? And that type of labor. And then I also I'm a brown woman. I know I have Afro-descendant history in my blood. I also have, Mesoamerican history in my blood, in my makeup, in my formation, and not be embarrassed or ashamed by that, right? And understand it, dig deeper. Like, okay, well, what does this mean? What does this mean for even like as simple as the food that my grandmother or my mother give me, right? Or fed me with? How does that, those systems impact even to the degree of our water and our food and our ways of life, Oh, no. We can dig deep into these.
And I think those are some of the things that we were talking about last week, moving forward with some of these different topics, food, music, entertainment.
Yes.
In fact, the other day we were talking about music. and how songs that we heard from back in the day that we listened to through our eyes today may not always be what we thought we were listening to.
Yeah.
We were just hearing it rather than listening to it.
No, we need to deconstruct our music a little bit more
Yes.
before we play it. But not only play it, but part again, right? As a feminist, it's about questioning.
Yes.
Right? Feminism is about questioning for me, right? It has many meanings for everyone, but for me and the type of feminist formation I've had is about questioning the world I live in.
That's one of the things that I really enjoy about this opportunity and this show. Are things like that, to learn new things, to be exposed to things that I didn't know. I have two wonderful daughters, and anything that I can do to empower them and to support them, that's yes.
Yeah, and like we were talking before the segment started, right? It's not the position of not knowing. And I learned this from a colleague in grad school, that the position of not knowing is as important, if not more important than the knowing.
Yeah, we talked about that right now as we were going to air.
Yeah.
You asked, okay,
I'm
going to ask you.
Sí, o sea, el admitir y aceptar el hecho de que no sabemos algo, that we don't know something, is important. Because then that's how we then learn. That's how then we seek out knowledge.
Exactly. And I mean, what better way
and
to
seek it out? And it's okay to not know. It's okay. We need to not, we need to come to terms with not knowing so that we can then inform ourselves.
And learn and grow.
Yes. Okay. Wow, that was a great conversation.
An awesome show, too. And so moving forward, this is what you're going to hear. What we're going to be discussing is, this type of format where we're talking about these values, these movements, and everything that comes along with this. So
yeah, we're gonna depart now. We're gonna finish the show, wrap it up. We do have some interviews coming along the way, so please stay tuned. And again, we changed our time. It's now going to be 11 in the morning. I think it works for everyone.
One thing that I did want to mention, it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, October, so
go get checked. Yes, go get checked. Men too. Men need to be checked as well. This is an important conversation to have. Yes. Because breast cancer doesn't only just impact women, it also impacts men.
And families as well.
That
are associated with this. So.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to end it with Dolly Parton, Jolene.
And we want to thank everybody for listening. And again, if you enjoyed what you heard, please promote the show and continue to support us.
Yes, please
Until next week.
Thank you.